Welcome back. I caught up with Christian Reed to hear about some of the innovative new tools from reekon. Take a look.
Now it's time for Open House, sponsored by Pyramid Heating and Cooling.
You know, I get really excited when I see tool companies that reimagine something that has been the same way for decades. And reekon.tools is just another one of those companies that is changing the world of home improvement and construction. Christian, welcome to Around the House Northwest.
Appreciate it, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Man, you guys are taking over the internet with your new T1 digital tape measure, and that is a game changer for people out there taking on projects.
Absolutely, Eric. I think, when you address something as fundamental as a tape measure, everyone has their preconceived notions about it. So to make something that, is both functional to professionals who are using it every day and not a gimmick that belongs in Sharper Image or SkyMall, it's pretty remarkable what we come out with, and certainly a fun tool to use on the job site.
It is amazing what you guys have done with this. And, we've all had the tape measure in our hands, but you have fixed so many problems with new tech that looks seamless to me.
Yeah, I think that was part of the challenge, and I think the uniqueness, and hopefully some of this comes out on the bottom with it, but the hardest part of making a digital tape measure is how do you make it accurate, that if you're flying through measurements, nothing is worse than wasting a $50 piece of ASIC or a very expensive piece of finish molding with it. So I think one of the big challenges on this was A, how to make it accurate, and B, how do you make sure it's durable enough so that if I drop it on the job site, I'm not concerned that it breaks with it. So certainly led to quite the engineering challenge, and very happy with where we came out at the end of the day with the T1 here.
It's interesting because I've always used, a laser digital tape measure for bigger projects. I've used my regular tape measure, but you guys really figured out a solution from what I can see to really be able to use that as both and be able to get that accuracy, because either one that I'm using, when I'm using it, I'm like, I don't really know that I got the measurement exactly correct.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, the very philosophical form of the digital tape measure is not including the markings on it, right? Because it's already digitally displaying it. But I think we put the markings on it, A, because sometimes it still is quicker for going to a particular measurement to use my eyes in the digital display. But B, it really gives you the confidence that if I see a measurement on this screen, I'm like, is this actually 19 inches? All I need to do is look down at the bottom and see that I'm exactly at the 19-inch mark with it. So certainly building up that trust is a big component of leveraging a digital tape measure before you could reap all the benefits of having the measurements digitally displayed on the side-mounted e-paper display, as well as shared over Bluetooth to anyone else on the job site, which is more of the hidden application of a digital tape measure. Is that I'm up on a roof taking measurements, I have my guy in the cut saw on the other side of the job sites, and he's following along versus me having to shout them all one at a time and generally messing up at least one of them in the process of completing a set of cuts.
The other thing I love too is that side green laser on this when you're measuring, because so many times when you're measuring a little bit back away from something, and maybe you're measuring up to a post or a window, but you've got some kind of obstacle you're working around, and that side laser doesn't have me trying to do the guess, right? Of like, I think that's about it. And darn well you're only within a quarter of an inch versus something much more accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the laser really cool because with the digital tape measure, I'm always either measuring from the front or the back reference surface. The laser, as you said, gives you a lot of ease of access to adjacent surfaces with it. So sometimes I'm hooking on something, but it's not on the same plane that I'm trying to go onto with it. And, there are extreme cases of using like a plumb bob to try to drop the level from one plane with it, where the laser, because it maintains its form at, distances up to 20, 30 feet with it, is great for pulling on adjacent surfaces and is super high visibility with it. So that was kind of a added bonus. Once we started out with the concept of a tape measure, we realized that really being able to extend this physical surface here where it was measuring from with the laser was a huge value add, and finding all sorts of creative applications of how people are using it and the cool, surfaces and things people are picking up that otherwise would be a very clunky process with a traditional tape measure.
And that is great. And Christian, you guys are not just tape measure people. You build a lot of other stuff for the shop as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Eric. So I think our philosophy on building products is really creating an ecosystem of digital tools that now you have all this measurements digitally. We have printers to print out labels for materials issues on the job sites, as well as the M1 caliber, which is actually our first product, and very straightforward how the M1 works with it. That normally if I'm using a miter saw, a cut saw, a wide variety of items here with it, I'd have to stop each time to make a cut with it. So I'd make my cut, I'd stop, I'd throw out my tape measure, draw my second line with my square or whatever with it. With the M1, it's a much more streamlined process where all I do is touch off on the edge of the saw blade. I'll zero it out and it'll account for the blade kerf because that's what's going to get blown out as sawdust. And very simple to go to my measurement. I just slide the material to my location, make the cut. And now for my second cut, rather than having to stop to use my tape measure, I zero out the M1, slide it, and I continue on with it. So you see the M1, really great when you're making repeat cuts. Maybe you don't have the space for a hard stop system and just really speed things up from having to pause each time to make a tape measure, and it automatically accounts for the blade kerf with it. So really great for continual cutting on a single piece of material, and is very, very straightforward and compact too, right? It clamps onto any miter saw fence, so it's a really convenient way, and we find a lot of professionals who are making a lot of these repeat cuts, whether on miter saws. We see people use them on seamless gutter machines. Anytime I'm measuring things in a straight line with it, the M1 works, exactly as expected. It has a wheel on it. The wheel converts the rotary measurements to linear measurements, and you have them displayed on a large backlit display with it. So we found a lot of really great use cases for that, and really set the precedent for what do digital tools mean on the entire job site versus just one section of it.
No question, no question. So the big question, how do people find this stuff if they need to add this to their tools?
Yeah, absolutely. So the T1 Tomahawk, we just started selling on our website, reekon.tools. And the M1 has been around for about a year and a half now. You can find it at Home Depot, Lowe's, Acme Tools, and across the internet. I think Reekon has a very big social presence. So any search on any platform with Reekon will very quickly direct you to application videos to see how our products are used, as well as certainly where to purchase and try them out. These are new products. All of our storefronts come with 30-day guarantees with it. So we certainly encourage customers, if you're on the edge, try it, beat it up. If it meets your expectations, great. If not, send it back and be more than happy to accept it with it, just to really promote this new concept of digital construction and error reduction on the job site.
Christian Reed, thanks for coming on today. This is some amazing stuff.
Cool. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate you having me.